The newer, bigger, more, faster, busy, we're better than you culture is undermining underdeveloped countries. We need to be taking into account the local old knowledge that has been developed over thousands of years in many parts of the world. Sustainable development and world crises can only be solved if we start to listen to each other and respect our histories. Africa is the birthplace of civilization, the place of the first technological boom as well. 2 million years ago, in the Stone Age, our human ancestors, people in Africa, were making sharp tools with flint. Can you imagine how that changed their lives? How maybe it changed all of our lives today? The tools they made were created from their surroundings. It helped feed their family, they made fire, and they lived off the land. In this photo, you'll see metal knives being made in the ground with hot coals and human power in Africa. This photo was taken in 2014, not 2 million years ago. When I was a child, I told my mother I wanted to go to Africa. I wanted to rid the world of suffering. I wanted to make the earth a better place. When I thought about Africa as I grew, the only stories I had really heard were that of colonization, poor, dying, starving children, lions and safaris, dirty slums, and people without formal educations. When I became an adult, I began to realize there was much more to the story. I started to see how the world really worked, and how politics, media, prejudices, and stereotypes drove the things that we talked about in our daily lives. I had to find out for myself what was really going on out there, and how I could be the most effective in alleviating suffering and affecting social change. I'd like to share some of my stories with you. Where I work in the country of Uganda in Eastern Africa, conservation, recycling, and collection of water every day is just part of life. And it doesn't take a new fancy technology to make it that way. In fact, people in the villages where I work prefer doing things the way they've done them for a very long time. It's what works for them. They collect every drop of water possible, and they appreciate water as their life source. My friends there are extremely creative, resourceful, and thoughtful with their actions. It's just a very different life. When we talk about water sources in East Africa, a borehole, for example, a very simple piece of technology that sucks up water from the ground with human power. A borehole is the limit to what most of my Ugandan friends have the capacity to maintain and use sustainably in rural villages. These villages often have no power, and the lights, the sun, is only on for about 12 hours a day. And all of the basics have to get done for your family in that amount of time before the lights go out. A clean, water-rich borehole can save someone a lot of time, resources, and sickness. That's all anyone can hope for. The daily basics in East Africa include cooking and growing food, bathing children, taking care of livestock, maybe caring for a sick family member. And all of these things are related to water. It requires heavy hauling and collection every single day. Every day, 1 billion people in this world that we all live in, they walk an average of 4 miles to collect water that many times isn't even safe to drink. This chore consumes 40 billion human hours alone on the continent of Africa each year. That means for each person lacking water in Uganda, they spend 1 to 6 hours each day fetching water. It creates a struggle daily for productivity, education, and income generation to occur. And you might look at this situation from afar and think, well, can't we just bring a new idea or a new piece of technology their way and make it all better? We know best, don't we? Well, from my experience and the people we work with, it really isn't that simple. My nonprofit, Drink Local, Drink Tap, works in East Africa to bring sustainable water solutions to schools in villages and slums. It takes a very, very long time to build relationships in the villages and make the right water source and sanitation decisions with each individual community. We implement our projects in places many of us could never dream of living. Places where people have never seen a tap, a toilet, a shower, let alone a Great Lake like we have here. 80% of all water projects in the world fail in the first 2 years because there was not a sustainable approach, appropriate technology, or listening involved in the planning process. And many times I think because we have very philanthropic hearts and a very busy industrialized speed of life to get back to, we don't take time to listen and pay attention to the very people that we're working with, not for, in places like Uganda. If you have been getting water all of your life, from rainfall, growing your food based on rainy seasons, collecting water in pots, or getting your water from the village borehole if you were lucky enough, that's what you'd trust and that's what you'd know. Not to mention, if foreigners had historically invaded your country or the whole continent you live in, colonized it, and treated you as less intelligent people, would you trust a new foreign technology coming to your village that you knew nothing about? No. You'd want a borehole or a rainwater harvesting system that you knew how to use and maintain. And what if the only way you had to feed your family was to push a bike very far distances, carrying things to sell so you could afford simple rice or sugar? And someone came to your village to give you a brand new fancy filtration system with a solar panel, battery, and controls you'd never seen. And if it broke, there was no one to fix it. No money to fix it, no parts to fix it. You'd use the parts then from this battery pack to fix your bike or your home. You'd use the wires to tie things together. You'd fix your bike with some of the parts so that you could feed your family with that bike. I've seen it happen. We simply aren't listening to each other. Let me give you an example of how we might think we know best with an extremely simple piece of technology, the can opener. A suitcase full of can openers was brought to a Ugandan town I was staying in by a European friend of mine. In one of these restaurants, the can openers were brought in and training on how to use them occurred. And the very next day, my European friend was wondering where all the can openers went. They were in the trash. People were using the knives like they always had to open the cans of food. The knife works well, and it can do many different things. Why worry about another contraption, people thought? How about a conversation I had one night while having some food in the village with friends? My friends asked me a very funny question. I thought it was funny. They asked me, "Erin, does everyone in America have a refrigerator?" I kind of laughed, and I said, "Well, yeah, if you have a home, you do." What I didn't expect was the laugh that I got back from them. And they said, "So you don't eat fresh food every day, sister?" I had to bite my tongue, and we had a good laugh. They were right. Why don't we eat fresh food every day? Obviously, our lifestyles are a bit different, and dropping off a new fancy, energy-efficient stainless steel refrigerator with water filtration, ice cube trays, and TVs built into the door wouldn't be of much use in the village. People don't waste anything in Uganda. They grow their own food, make toys from trash, wear clothes until they basically disintegrate, and they use every drop of water possible. They weren't as interested in my Western refrigerator. They were interested in getting water to grow food for their family, bathe, drink, and clean. villagers far out in what seemed to be the middle of nowhere on my way to a refugee camp. They saw electrical lines and towers being constructed, and they thought they were evil gifts, and they refused to feed their cattle there like they had for the entire history of their families. They believed it would bring sickness to their cattle, their livelihood. These people were not worried about electricity. They wanted to take care of their cattle, which takes care of their family. Today, we use water for farming, industry, hygiene, hydration, drinking, cleaning, and sharing with other animals. We get it from enormous amounts of places: aquifers, lakes, rivers, streams, glaciers. It's a common good. And I think we in our modern lives, we might not be caring for it or appreciating its worth, like maybe some more simple old lifestyles do in Africa. I think our water is under attack from our obsession with stuff we don't need. We create too much food through agribusiness. We bury, divert, or pollute streams while producing stuff. And we use it in any manufacturing that we can think of. Some might say this addiction to stuff developed alongside modern technology, which made it much easier to produce many things at once. But how efficient is our system of stuff if one cotton t-shirt takes 700 gallons of water to be produced? How many gallons of water are sitting in all of our closets right now? I know I have a lot. What if our closets weren't about, what if we didn't worry about filling our closets with this water-heavy stuff that we don't need? And we focused on creating communities that show gratitude and care for the air, land, water, and people. What if we worked on creating communities that allowed us to thrive, where we listened to each other, respected each other, and thought about sustainability when making technology advancements? We live in a completely different world, one that I dream of. So, taking a bit of seriousness out of this conversation, I need to ask everyone a question. Don't be shy. Who has used a toilet today? Okay, I don't want to know where the rest of you went. Okay. Well, we are very, very lucky to have toilets. There are more toilets in this building today than there are in all of the slums I've ever worked in, equaling over 1.5 million people combined. Toilets, my friends, are a very luxurious piece of technology. It's funny, when I work in Africa, I don't stay in fancy hotels in the city. I stay in the places I work. I'm in the village every day, and I too go to the bathroom in a hole in the ground. I start to prefer it and get used to it sometimes, but getting used to these cockroaches going in the middle of the night, something I can't quite get used to yet. I think our fancy flush toilets are pretty cool, but people in the village have no use for it. Now, let me also say that people want to have good hygiene, live with dignity, and have a safe place to relieve themselves. But bringing a fancy flush toilet to a village just wouldn't make sense to my friends. Even in Kampala, the capital of Uganda, in a government building where people go to work dressed in suits 40 hours a week, I found this sign posted above the toilet. Toilets in Kampala having seats attached are rare to find. People are so used to going to the bathroom in pit latrines that even government employees who make a decent salary and live a decent life have to be reminded on how to use this technology. In the village at an orphanage we work with, another nonprofit organization brought flush toilets for the kids. This was well before we built a borehole at the school. One day they asked me if I could teach a class on water and using toilets. So why not? Who doesn't want to do that, right? The previous organization had not sensitized these people on how to use the toilets, and they had no clue on how to train 250 orphans on how to use flush toilets. and they couldn't use them. All of the water they collected, they needed to wash all of these children, bathe all of these children, give these children water to drink, give these children food. They needed their water for many other purposes. So during my class, we made up a song about toilets called Poo, Paper, and Pee. It's a YouTube hit. And it followed a lesson on what not to put in the toilet. No pencils, no toys, no rocks or dirt. Just poo, paper if they had some, and pee. 3 years later, the toilets remain rarely used. I'm not sure of their functioning status. I've never seen or heard of anyone using them. And the pit latrines that they still have at the school are in full-blown use. So, are their bathroom behaviors worse than ours? I don't think so. In fact, in pit latrines, you can usefully collect compost for farming. They don't take any water to maintain except to wash around the edges. And maybe to fix them, it takes a few simple bricks and some cement that you can find in the village. So it costs next to nothing. It's a pretty efficient system if these latrines are built carefully, without leaks, and ingrained with community responsibility to maintain the facilities. So I'm not here today to bash technology. I hope it doesn't seem that way. I love toilets. I love toilet seats. I love my iPhone, electricity. I love it all. But I am here to bring attention to appreciate ideas that have been working for a very long time. And I'm here to share my experiences about learning to listen to simple ideas from people who have built real-life local knowledge over thousands of years. When we get excited about being engineers and designers and do-gooders, I think it's important for us to remember not to be completely ego-driven or profit-driven, but to focus on the people and the impact that our idea would make. And that can't happen without listening. Something to think about is if your idea is something the world really needs. And how do you think you find out? You listen. When more people in this world have access to cell phones than to proper sanitation, and 1 billion people lack access to safe drinking water, simple solutions using old ideas are the most cost-effective, realistic ways to make lasting change. Thank you.